Hello, everyone, and welcome to this chapter where we will be elaborating on the brain, talking about the brain and some of the parts of the brain. Now, as we go through this presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you little shortcuts that helped me remember the parts of the brain. Now, you might have your own shortcuts, and if you do have a shortcut that you like better, I encourage you to use your shortcut. But I'm going to tell you how I remembered the parts of the brain. It's a little trick. So you can use my little trick, or you could come up with your own. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll show you right now. So let's get started with the first part of the brain, and it's actually part of the brain stem, and it's called the pons, P-O-N-S. Now, as usual, I have highlighted the thing you have to remember and highlighted here in yellow. If it's in white, that's just extra information. But it says here the pons. It regulates sleep, breathing, swallowing, bladder function, hearing, taste, eye movement. If you notice, all of those things are things that you don't have to purposely do. It just comes natural, right? You don't have to focus on hearing, you just hear naturally. Or taste, you don't have to concentrate, you just taste food. It all happens naturally. Pons, a little bit of more information. I'm going to give you a couple of tidbits for some parts of the brain. What if your pons were damaged? It says you would stay alive, but your daily life would be severely disrupted. So, as I was saying, here we have the pons on the top of the brain stem. And how did I remember this part of the brain when I was in school and having to remember all the functions? Well, what I came up with, if we look at the word pons, if I just add one letter, I can write the word ponds, like a pond. And if you're at a pond, there's water flowing, right? You can hear the water within the pond. There might be birds chirping in the background. You might taste the food if you're having a picnic. Swallow the food. Your eyes are looking around at maybe there might be fish in the pond, water lilies, birds flying around. All of these things are happening naturally. So how did I remember the ponds for the brain? Well, I just thought, well, what if I went to a pond with a picnic? And all of these things would be happening. I'd be looking, I'd be eating, I'd be listening to nature. So how do I remember the ponds? By the word ponds. Now again, if you have your own shortcut, I encourage you to use that one, but I'm going to come up with the ones, I'm going to share the ones that I came up with. Okay, next, if you see here is the pons. Under the pons, also within the brainstem, we have the medulla. It controls circulation and breathing. Now the medulla, little fact, what if your medulla were damaged? Trouble with basic bodily functions, and there's an actor, his name is Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve's injury was here, so he needed support to breathe, and he used to play Superman a long time ago in a lot of different movies, and he hurt his medulla while he was thrown off of a horse, in fact, and that's how he got injured. Now, medulla. I think when you see the word medulla, it's easy to think of the word Medusa. Now, how am I going to link Medusa and medulla? Those two things seem very far-fetched. Well, let me tell you how. Now, when it comes to Medusa, Perseus, this is from a movie called Clash of the Titans. So here we see Perseus. He's on his way to battle Medusa the Gorgon, and Medusa, if she looks at someone, they turn to stone. So here we see Perseus looking at someone that has turned into stone. Well, he decided to do, he can't look at Medusa, but if he looks at her reflection in his shield, he'll be okay. So what he does is he hides behind a pillar and he very calmly waits for her, because he invaded her lair. He's calmly waiting for her to come around the pillar. He's controlling his breathing. He's controlling his circulation. He's staying nice and calm. He's not getting overly excited. He's staying nice and calm. And then when she gets close, he's going to attack, and he does chop off her head. So, the medulla, circulation and breathing. Remember, Perseus with Medusa stayed calm behind a pillar, controlled himself, and he was victorious. Now, let's talk about the reticular formation. And according to this picture here, the reticular formation is behind the pons and behind the medulla. And again, it is things that you don't think about. It just happens naturally. It regulates sleep, wakefulness, and levels of arousal. Now, when it comes to the reticular formation, how can you remember the reticular formation? Well, first, let's look up a fact. What if your reticular formation were damaged? It says here, a cat with a cut reticular formation lapses into a permanent coma, which makes sense, right? Because we said it regulates sleep and it's about wakefulness. So how do I remember that with this word? Well, when I see reticular formation, I think of the word rectangular formation. And what is in a rectangle? Well, a bed. And if we're talking about sleep, a bed. Wakefulness, well, you wake up in the morning in a bed. All of these things, sleep, wakefulness, levels of arousal, right here, rectangular formation. Very similar to reticular formation. Now, the cerebellum. This is non-verbal learning, and it coordinates muscular activity. What we're talking about is muscle memory. When you train your body to go over certain movements, you're training it so that it will do it automatically without any thinking. So even when you're exhausted and tired, your body is going to go through those natural movements. Cerebellum, here it is, right behind the brain stem. So, how could I remember cerebellum? Nonverbal learning, muscular activity. Well, when I see this word, I focus on the word bell. What if your cerebellum were damaged? It would be hard to walk, and you wouldn't respond as well to automatic training, like trying to learn a dance routine that you're memorizing to a certain song. Anything that's coordinated, you'd have a lot of trouble working with that. So I focus on the word bell. A boxer trains, so when he hears the bell, his body is going to do the same thing that he's been training to do. Cerebellum. A boxer, here we have Sylvester Stallone from Rocky IV. He trained to be a boxer for the film. And here's the movie Creed. Now, a boxer trains so when he hears the bell, even when he's exhausted, when he's tired, and he doesn't have any more energy, his body will still go. He's trained to go from bell to bell. And that's muscle memory. And that's how I remember cerebellum. Now, before we go on to the next word, I want to remind you of what the endocrine system is. So what is the endocrine system? Okay, the endocrine system is a collection of glands that produce hormones that regulate metabolism, growth and development, tissue function, sexual function, reproduction, sleep, and mood, among other things. So it's a collection of glands like the thyroid gland, the thymus, the pancreas, the adrenal glands, the testes, all of these are part of the endocrine system because they produce hormones. Now, I'm introducing you to this word because for our next definition, the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, it links the nervous system and the endocrine system via the pituitary gland, and it regulates the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic meaning it happens, it's natural, it's part of the body responding to life. Now, how can I remember hypothalamus linking a nervous system and the endocrine system? How can I remember that the hypothalamus links two different things? Well, what I did is I remember, the prefix hypo. The prefix hypo means underneath, kind of like a hypodermic needle. A hypodermic needle would connect an IV bag to your body. So your body is linked to an IV bag through a hypodermic needle. It is linking two things. So, how do I remember? By focusing on the prefix hypo, which means under, hypodermic needle.